They said his service was finished, but the silence afterward hurt more than the war. A retired American veteran stood alone in the snow, haunted by memories he never spoke aloud. Then the wind carried a sound that froze his blood. Something alive, abandoned, and breaking. What he found should not have survived. What he chose to do changed everything. Because sometimes salvation arrives quietly, and in saving another life, we finally save our own. Of a storm, both literal and internal. Ethan, a retired American veteran, finds himself alone in the mountains during a violent snowstorm, driving without urgency, as if movement itself has become optional. The war may be behind him on paper, but it still lives in his posture, his silence, and the way he scans the world. He wears an old multicam jacket faded by time, dog tags resting against his chest, reminders of a life he never truly left behind. At his side is Rex, his German shepherd, disciplined and alert, more partner than pet. The storm intensifies, forcing Ethan to pull over near a remote forest road. It is there, in the howling wind and white silence, that he hears a sound that cuts through years of emotional numbness, a weak, broken noise that does not belong to the storm. Training takes over before thought. Ethan steps into the snow, following the sound downhill toward the trees. What he finds is Ghost, a German shepherd hanging from a steel cable, barely alive. The dog is skeletal, trembling, frost clinging to his fur and whiskers. A tactical collar hangs loose around his neck, and beneath it, a note explains everything with brutal simplicity. Unstable, not worth the risk. The language is painfully familiar to Ethan. He has seen it before, used to justify abandonment, to make walking away sound reasonable. For a moment, the past threatens to overtake him. Memories of a mission gone wrong surface. Orders followed, lives lost, a choice he never forgave himself for. But this time, something is different. Ethan does not hesitate. He climbs the frozen tree, cuts the cable, and catches Ghost as the dog collapses into his arms. In the snow, holding a life that should already be gone, Ethan makes a decision that feels less like heroism and more like correction. This time, no one is being left behind. The storm does not ease as Ethan carries Ghost back to his truck. Snow erases tracks almost as quickly as they are made, isolating them further from the world. Ghost is heavy in his arms, every breath shallow but present. Rex remains close, watchful and silent, moving with the discipline of a soldier still on duty. Ethan drives through the storm to a remote cabin hidden deep in the forest, a place that once belonged to a fallen teammate. Inside, the cabin is cold and dark, but Ethan works with calm efficiency. He builds a fire, cleans the wounds around Ghost's neck, and applies bandages with the precision of a combat medic. He speaks quietly, not with comfort, but with steadiness. Ghost, despite the pain, does not resist. He watches Ethan closely, as if assessing whether this human will leave too. As night settles in, the storm seals the cabin off from the rest of the world. Ghost lies near the fire, wrapped in a blanket, breathing more evenly now. Rex takes position near the door, facing outward, guarding without instruction. Ethan refuses sleep, checking Ghost's pulse, feeding the fire, listening to every sound outside. The quiet presses in, bringing with it memories he has long tried to suppress. Eventually, exhaustion catches him. Ethan drifts into a shallow sleep, only to be ripped awake by a surge of panic. The cabin fades, replaced by echoes of war. Rotor blades, shouted orders, guilt that still burns as sharply as it did years ago. His body reacts before his mind can reason. Breath short, muscles locked in readiness. It is Ghost who pulls him back. Despite his injuries, the dog drags himself across the floor and presses against Ethan's leg, warm and solid. Rex remains alert but calm, anchoring the space. Ethan focuses on Ghost's breathing, forcing his own lungs to match it. Slowly, the panic recedes. For the first time since the mission that broke him, Ethan stays present through the fear instead of running from it. Chapter 1 closes in the quiet aftermath of survival. Outside, the storm continues. Inside, a fragile connection has formed between a man haunted by what he left behind and a dog discarded by a system that deemed him expendable. No peace is promised. No future is clear. But something important has shifted. In choosing to save Ghost, Ethan has taken the first step toward confronting the past he never truly escaped, and toward a path where staying may finally mean healing. After the rescue, relief does not arrive the way people imagine it should. Ethan kneels in the snow with Ghost in his arms, while the blizzard continues to rage around them, indifferent to what almost didn't happen. The wind cuts across the clearing in sharp bursts, stinging his face, forcing his eyes half closed. Snow gathers on his shoulders, on the brim of his faded cap, on the multicam jacket that has seen too many winters to count. He barely notices. All of his attention is fixed on the weight in his arms. Ghost is alive. That is the only truth that matters right now. The dog's body is rigid with cold, muscles locked tight beneath the brown and black coat, breath shallow and uneven. Each rise of Ghost's chest feels like a negotiation between instinct and exhaustion, between survival and surrender. Ethan shifts his grip instinctively, angling Ghost's head just enough to keep the airway clear. His hands move without conscious thought, guided by training etched deep into muscle memory. Beside them, Rex sits in the snow, perfectly still. The German Shepherd's posture is alert but restrained, ears upright, gaze sweeping the tree line in slow, deliberate arcs. He does not whine or pace. He does not press in close or demand attention. He holds position, the way he always does, the way Ethan once did. The forest around them groans under the weight of the storm. Pines creak and sway, their branches shedding heavy curtains of snow. The truck's headlights cut pale tunnels through the white, barely enough to define the world beyond arm's reach. It feels like they exist inside a bubble of frozen silence, isolated from everything else. Ethan feels the burn in his knees where they press into the snow, the ache in his shoulders, the numbness creeping into his fingers. He ignores it all. Physical discomfort is familiar, predictable. What tightens his chest is the other weight, the one he recognizes instantly. Responsibility. He has felt this before, the exact shape of it, the moment where action becomes obligation, and obligation becomes a line he cannot cross without losing something he won't get back. Once, years ago, he followed orders instead. Once he told himself it wasn't his call. Once he walked away. He does not intend to do that again. Rex shifts slightly, turning his head toward the truck as if reminding Ethan of time. Ethan exhales through clenched teeth and nods once, more to himself than to the dog. He tightens his hold on Ghost and pushes himself to his feet, legs protesting as blood rushes back into them. The walk to the truck is slow and careful. Ethan adjusts his balance with each step, boots sinking into drifts, shoulders hunched to shield Ghost from the wind. Rex moves ahead without command, circling once, then stopping near the open tailgate, scanning the darkness beyond the headlights. Ethan lowers Ghost into the back seat, laying him carefully on an old blanket he keeps folded behind the cab. The fabric is thin and worn, but it's dry. He tucks it around Ghost's body, covering the ribs, the hind legs, leaving the head free. Ghost shivers once, then stills, amber eyes blinking slowly. "It's all right," Ethan murmurs, the words leaving his mouth before he thinks about them. He closes the door gently and moves around to the driver's side. Rex is already waiting, posture rigid, eyes tracking Ethan until he opens the door. Only then does Rex jump in, settling into the passenger seat with disciplined precision, ears forward, gaze fixed on the road ahead. The engine turns over with a low growl. The truck eases forward into the storm. The drive down the mountain feels longer than it should. Snow swallows the road almost immediately, forcing Ethan to slow to a crawl. The world beyond the windshield fades into shifting white, landmarks disappearing as if erased. The wipers struggle to keep up, squeaking with each pass. The dashboard lights cast a faint green glow across Ethan's hands, steady on the wheel. Ghost breathes behind him, shallow, uneven, but breathing. Ethan checks the rearview mirror more often than necessary, eyes flicking back to confirm what he already knows. Rex remains silent, his reflection sharp in the glass. Watching the road with the same intensity Ethan feels burning behind his own eyes. Chaos always feels familiar to Ethan. It has a rhythm he understands. Silence does too. When the truck finally slows near the narrow turn that leads to the cabin, Ethan exhales a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. The road disappears entirely beneath fresh snow, but he knows this stretch by heart. Muscle memory guides him the rest of the way. The cabin appears through the trees like a crouched animal, low and weathered, its outline softened by the storm. Ethan pulls the truck to a stop and kills the engine. For a moment, everything goes quiet except the wind. Rex is out of the truck before Ethan's door fully opens. He jumps down into the snow, landing lightly, circling once before taking position near the cabin door. Guarding. Always guarding, Ethan lifts Ghost from the back seat, adjusting his grip as the weight settles into his arms. The dog is heavier now, dead weight pulling at his shoulders. Ethan shifts his stance, braces, and starts forward. Each step toward the cabin feels deliberate, intentional. The door creaks open under Ethan's shoulder, releasing a breath of cold air from inside. The cabin smells faintly of old wood and pine, of smoke long gone. Ethan steps inside and closes the door behind him with his heel. Darkness greets them. Ethan lowers Ghost onto the floor near the stone fireplace and immediately shrugs off his jacket. Fire first. Warmth before anything else. He moves quickly, efficiently, stacking wood, striking a match, coaxing the flame to life. The fire catches slowly, licking at the logs, then grows steadier. Light pushes back the shadows, revealing rough-hewn walls, old gear stacked neatly in one corner, a space built to endure rather than comfort. Ethan kneels beside Ghost and begins to work. He melts snow in a metal cup and uses a clean cloth to gently wipe the raw, swollen marks around Ghost's neck. The steel burn is angry and deep, skin torn where the cable bit in. Ethan's jaw tightens as he works, eyes focused, movements precise. He does not rush. Rushing leads to mistakes. Ghost flinches once, a low sound escaping his throat, but he does not pull away. He watches Ethan closely, amber eyes tracking every movement, as if trying to understand what kind of human this is. Ethan unwraps clean gauze and begins to bandage the wound, hands steady, practiced. Combat medic training takes over completely now, shutting out the storm, the past, the weight of everything else. There is only the task, only the life in front of him. Rex lies near the door, facing outward, body relaxed, but ready. He does not interfere. He trusts Ethan to do the work. When the bandage is secure, Ethan leans back on his heels and listens. Ghost's breathing has slowed, still shallow, but steadier, alive. The fire crackles softly behind them, casting warm light across the cabin. For a moment, the world feels suspended, not safe, but held. Ethan sinks back against the wall and lets the exhaustion settle into his bones. His gaze drifts to the flames, watching them dance, hypnotic. Silence fills the room, and with it comes memory. Sleep finds him eventually, but it is not kind. It comes in fragments, shallow and restless, pulling him under only to drag him back moments later. His dreams bleed into reality, canyon walls, dust, shouted orders swallowed by rotor noise. His body tenses, breath shortening, muscles locking as if preparing for impact. Ethan jolts awake with a sharp inhale, heart hammering against his ribs. For a split second, he doesn't know where he is. The firelight flickers, throwing shadows that stretch too long across the walls. The wind outside presses against the cabin, and the sound twists into something else. Something older, louder, more violent. Panic tightens his chest, stealing air from his lungs. Rex is on his feet instantly. He positions himself between Ethan and the darkness, body squared, ears forward. He does not bark. He does not growl. He stays. Despite the pain in his neck, Ghost drags himself closer, claws scraping softly against the wooden floor. He presses his head against Ethan's boots and exhales, warm breath fogging the air. Ethan's hands tremble as he lowers one to Ghost's back. "Stay," he whispers, not sure who the word is meant for. He focuses on the rise and fall beneath his palm, forcing his breathing to slow, to match Ghost's rhythm. Slowly, the panic loosens its grip. Not gone, but manageable. Ethan leans his head back against the wall, eyes closing again, not to sleep, but to stay present. Outside, the storm continues. Inside, for the first time in a long while, no one is being left behind. Morning does not arrive all at once. It seeps into the cabin slowly, pale and uncertain, slipping through the narrow windows in thin bands of gray light. The storm has eased, but it has not truly passed. Snow still falls in a quiet, persistent way, as if the mountain is reluctant to let go of what it claimed during the night. Ethan wakes before the light fully settles. He does not startle this time. There is no sudden rush of panic, no sharp inhale dragging him back from memory. He opens his eyes and stays still, listening. The fire has burned down to embers, the room quiet except for the soft, steady breathing nearby. Ghost lies curled close to the hearth, bandaged neck rising and falling in a slow rhythm. His eyes are half open, alert even in rest. Rex sits near the door, posture relaxed but attentive, ears flicking occasionally, as if cataloging sounds beyond the walls. Ethan exhales and pushes himself upright. His body aches in a way that feels earned, familiar. He rolls his shoulders once, then moves carefully across the floor, checking Ghost's bandage. The swelling has not worsened. The skin around the wound is still angry, but clean. Ghost watches him closely, amber eyes tracking every movement. "You made it through the night," Ethan murmurs quietly. Ghost's tail shifts once, a subtle acknowledgement. The knock on the door comes just as Ethan finishes adding a log to the fire. It is soft at first, almost hesitant, nearly lost beneath the wind. Ethan freezes mid-motion. Rex is already on his feet, body squared toward the door, ears upright. Ethan straightens slowly, instinct guiding his movements before thought catches up. The knock comes again, firmer this time. Ethan crosses the cabin without sound and cracks the door open just enough to see. A woman stands on the porch, snow clinging to her jacket and boots. She is tall, lean, her movements economical, her posture careful in a way Ethan recognizes instantly. Her hair is pulled back in a low, practical tie, and her face is weathered, not by age but by long hours spent outside. Her eyes are sharp, but calm. "Sorry to bother you," she says. Her voice is steady, respectful. "I'm a park ranger. Storm cut me off last night." Ethan studies her for a moment longer than politeness requires, then nods once and opens the door wider. "Come in." She steps inside, brushing snow from her boots and stopping just short of the fire, clearly aware of the tension in the room. She does not crowd the space, does not move too quickly. She notices Rex immediately and acknowledges him with a brief nod, the kind people use with animals they understand. Then she sees Ghost. Her expression tightens, not in alarm, but in recognition. She kneels slowly, careful to keep distance, hands resting on her thighs. She does not reach out. She simply observes. "He's been through something," she says quietly. Ethan watches her closely, measuring every movement. Rex remains near Ethan's side, eyes tracking her without aggression. The ranger introduces herself and explains why she was out in the storm. Illegal traps, private handlers operating outside regulation, working dogs abandoned when they become inconvenient. The words land hard. Unstable, not worth the risk. Disposal. Ethan does not interrupt. He listens, jaw tightening as language he knows too well fills the room. He has heard versions of it before, on reports, on assessments, on decisions that reduced people to liabilities and assets. Ghost shifts slightly near the fire, ears flicking at the sound of the ranger's voice. "This isn't over," she says, glancing between Ethan and Ghost. "Whatever happened to him didn't start last night." Ethan nods once. "I figured." Morning pushes forward, bringing with it a sense of inevitability. Ethan knows what comes next. Shelter is not enough. Care is not complete without answers. He loads Ghost carefully into the truck, padding the back seat with blankets. Ghost moves stiffly, but without complaint. Rex takes his usual position in the passenger seat, posture straight, eyes forward. The ranger rides with them. The drive into town feels different in daylight. The snow still covers everything, but the world has definition again. Edges return. Distance becomes measurable. They arrive at a small veterinary clinic near the edge of town. The building is unremarkable. Low roof, faded sign, windows fogged with warmth. Inside, the air smells of disinfectant and damp fur. Clean, controlled. The veterinarian who greets them is a woman in her late 50s, broad-shouldered, steady on her feet. Her gray hair is cropped short, her hands scarred and capable. She does not rush. She does not coo. She kneels to Ghost's level and simply observes. Ethan stands beside the table, shoulders squared, hands resting at his sides. The ranger stands slightly back, watching. The examination is thorough, methodical. The veterinarian checks Ghost's neck, his joints, his range of motion. She traces old scars beneath the coat, marks that tell a story without words. "This dog didn't snap," she says finally, voice calm but firm. "He was pushed." Ethan feels something loosen in his chest at the certainty in her tone. She explains what she sees. Aversive training, excessive force, punishment designed to break rather than guide. The hanging was not discipline, it was disposal. Ethan recognizes the language again. Asset, liability, risk mitigation. The ranger's jaw tightens as she listens. A bell chimes at the door, and a woman enters with a young boy. The boy stops short when he sees Ghost, curiosity flickering across his face. He takes a hesitant step forward. "Is he mean?" the boy asks quietly. Ethan holds his breath. Ghost remains still, ears relaxed, posture neutral. "No," the veterinarian says. "He's hurt." The boy nods, understanding the difference. He lifts his hand slightly, then hesitates. Ghost exhales softly, a gentle sound that fogs the air. The room feels suspended in that moment, proof hanging quietly between them. After paperwork is signed and instructions are given, Ethan carries Ghost back to the truck. The ranger lingers near the door, scanning the street, already thinking ahead. "They won't like scrutiny," she says. "Whoever did this." Ethan meets her gaze in the side mirror. They never do. The drive back toward the mountains is quiet. Snow clouds gather again overhead, the sky heavy and gray. Ghost lies alert but calm in the back seat. Rex's ears flick at every sound. A deep crack rolls through the air like distant thunder. Ethan's head snaps toward the slope. They see it moments later, a section of the mountainside giving way, snow spilling down into the basin below. A sedan sits half buried at the edge, rear lights blinking weakly through powder. Ethan brakes hard and pulls off the road. The ranger is already on the radio, calling in coordinates with clipped precision. Rex is out of the truck before Ethan can open his door. Ghost forces himself upright despite the bandage, muscles trembling but determined. "Stay," Ethan starts, then stops himself. Rex plunges into the snow. Ghost follows, slower but resolute. Ethan runs after them, boots breaking through drifts, breath burning in his chest. Ghost stops suddenly and paws at the snow, head low, tail rigid. Ethan drops to his knees and digs, hands numb, fingers burning. Snow packed dense and cold. A child's hand appears first, alive. Ethan clears an airway, wraps the boy in his jacket, and passes him back to the ranger. Then another child, crying thinly, but breathing. The father comes last, pinned but conscious. Ethan stabilizes him with practiced efficiency, speaking clearly, keeping him awake until help arrives. Sirens cut through the trees, muffled by snow. When the family is loaded and moved, gratitude comes quietly. A woman grips Ethan's sleeve with shaking hands. "That dog," she says. "He found them." Ethan nods once. Rex and Ghost stand nearby, silent, steady. They return to the cabin as dusk approaches. The light is thin and blue. Ethan cleans Ghost's bandage again, movements gentle, precise. Rex lies near the door, facing outward. For a moment, it feels like peace. Then headlights cut across the trees. Ethan stiffens. Rex rises. Ghost lifts his head. Someone is coming. Headlights don't belong in the trees that late. They cut through the snow like a blade, sliding across the cabin walls, crawling over the frosted window pane, then stopping, too close, too deliberate. The light doesn't sweep like someone searching for a driveway. It settles like someone who already knows exactly where they are. Ethan goes still, not frozen, just quiet, controlled, the kind of stillness that isn't calm so much as prepared. Rex rises without a sound, moving to the center of the room with his ears forward and his body squared. Ghost lifts his head from the blanket near the fire. His eyes sharpen, amber catching the firelight in a way that makes them look brighter than they should. The ranger stands from the table where she'd been reviewing her notes, her movements smooth and deliberate. She doesn't reach for anything dramatic. She doesn't panic. She simply shifts to a position where she can see the door and the window at the same time, shoulders angled, weight balanced. Ethan doesn't speak at first. His mind runs ahead, cataloging possibilities the way it always does when the world turns uncertain. Distance, angles, exits, timing. He notices how the headlights brighten, then dim slightly, as if someone has switched off high beams. He hears a car door open and close outside, the sound muffled by the storm but unmistakable. Footsteps, heavy, confident. Rex's posture tightens, not aggressive, controlled. The dog's presence is like a door that won't open. Ghost shifts, then stops. For a moment, Ethan thinks the injured dog might try to stand, but Ghost chooses stillness instead. Watching, measuring, remembering. Ethan feels that choice in his chest. It's not submission, it's discipline. A knock hits the cabin door. Not polite, not a question, a statement. The ranger looks at Ethan. Her eyes are clear, focused. She mouths one word without sound. Stay. Ethan nods once. He crosses the room with slow, quiet steps and positions himself in front of the door, blocking it with his body before he reaches for the latch. Rex moves with him, staying slightly behind and to the side like a partner trained to cover angles. Ghost remains near the fire, head lifted, eyes steady. Ethan opens the door a few inches. Wind pushes in immediately, cold air spilling into the warmth of the cabin. On the porch stands a man built wide through the shoulders, mid-40s maybe, beard untrimmed, coat open despite the weather. He carries himself like someone used to being obeyed. His eyes scan past Ethan, searching for something inside. "That's my dog," the man says. His voice is flat with certainty, not concern. Ownership, not recognition. Ethan holds the door where it is, narrowing the opening. "He's not going anywhere." The man's gaze flicks toward Rex, then returns to Ethan, annoyed rather than cautious. "You found him out there. I want him back." Behind Ethan, the ranger takes a half-step closer. Not threatening, just present. The kind of presence that changes the shape of a room. Ethan's expression doesn't change. He was hanging from a cable. The man shrugs like that detail is inconvenient, not shameful. "That dog's unstable. Dangerous. You don't know what you're dealing with." Ethan hears something in that word, unstable, that makes his jaw tighten. It's not the first time he's heard someone use a single label to make abandonment feel justified. It's the oldest trick in the book. Call something a problem long enough, and people stop asking what made it that way. Inside, Ghost's ears twitch at the man's voice. His body remains still, but Ethan sees the tension in the dog's shoulders, the way the injured muscles hold themselves as if bracing for impact that may never come. Rex shifts, placing himself more clearly between Ethan and the porch. The man notices. He scoffs. "See? That one's trained. But that one..." He nods toward Ghost. "That one's a liability." Ethan's voice stays level. "You're done here." The man leans forward, testing the boundary. "You can't keep him. I paid for him." Paid. The word hangs in the air like exhaust. Ethan doesn't move, but something changes behind his eyes, an old steel settling into place. "Get off my property." The man smiles without warmth. "Or what?" Ethan doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. Rex's posture is answer enough. Controlled, ready, not escalating, just refusing to yield space. The ranger remains silent, watching the man's hands, tracking his stance, reading him the way you read weather in the mountains. The man's patience breaks. He shoves the door harder, forcing it open another inch. Wind bursts in again. Ethan absorbs the movement without stepping back, feet planted, shoulders squared. "That dog is mine," the man repeats, louder now. "Move." Ethan's voice drops, quieter but sharper. "No." That single syllable lands like a lock clicking into place. For a moment, the man hesitates. Not because he respects Ethan, but because he recognizes something he didn't anticipate. Ethan isn't arguing. He isn't negotiating. He's finished. The man's eyes flick toward the cabin interior, toward Ghost near the fire. "Come on," he mutters, shifting his weight as if he might try to push past. Rex steps forward one measured pace. Not a lunge, not a threat, just a line drawn. Ghost flinches at the man's movement, a quick instinctive reaction that disappears as fast as it appears. Then Ghost steadies again, eyes locked on the man, breathing controlled. Ethan sees the restraint there, the discipline under pain, and it makes something in him tighten. Not with fear, but with clarity. The ranger speaks for the first time, her voice calm and precise. "Sir, you need to step back." The man's eyes snap to her. "Who are you?" "Park Service," she says. "And I've been tracking illegal traps in this area. The dog you're claiming is evidence." The word evidence changes the temperature of the porch. The man's expression shifts, still arrogant, but with a thin edge of calculation now. "You don't have anything on me." The ranger doesn't blink. "I have enough to ask questions you won't like." Ethan feels Ghost move behind him, not rising, just shifting closer to the warmth and safety of the fire. Rex remains fixed in front, a silent barrier. The man swallows whatever argument he was about to throw. He forces a laugh, sharp and brittle. "You think you can keep him? You think that dog's worth it?" Ethan's eyes don't leave his. "Yes." The man's gaze hardens. He makes a sudden motion toward the door, too fast, too close, trying to grab at Ghost's collar through the gap. Rex blocks the reach immediately, stepping into the space with perfect timing. Ethan catches the man's wrist, not wrenching, not harming, just stopping the movement cleanly. Control, not violence. The ranger's radio crackles in the background, her thumb already pressing the call button. "County," she says into it, voice steady. "I need a unit at my location." The man jerks his hand back, anger rising, but his confidence wavers. "You touch me again." Ethan releases him without a word, like letting go of something unworthy of effort. He closes the door a fraction more, maintaining the barrier. Minutes stretch. Outside, the engine of the man's vehicle idles, a low rumble beneath the storm. The man stays on the porch, pacing one step left, one step right, as if he's waiting for a moment to slip through. Ethan stays exactly where he is. Rex stands beside his leg. Ghost watches from the firelight, silent. The ranger remains at the counter, radio pressed to her ear. She isn't dramatic. She doesn't look like a hero. She looks like someone who's done this too many times and knows that steady attention is the only thing that wins. Then, distant at first, a siren breaks through the wind. The sound grows closer, slicing through the storm like a promise. Red and blue lights flicker through the trees, washing the cabin walls in cold color. The man on the porch shifts backward instinctively, bravado fading as reality arrives. A deputy steps out of the vehicle, jacket zipped high, flashlight in hand. He approaches with caution, scanning the scene. The ranger steps onto the porch, meeting him halfway. She speaks in low, clipped sentences, giving details, pointing to the man, referencing coordinates and photographs and notes she's compiled over weeks. Ethan doesn't leave the doorway. He watches, breathing steady, keeping his body between the outside world and the life behind him. Rex remains planted, calm and focused. Ghost does not move. The deputy looks at the man, listens to his protests, then turns his attention back to the ranger's evidence. The conversation becomes less about arguments and more about facts. The man's voice grows sharper, then higher, then desperate. Ethan watches the man's anger collapse into disbelief when the deputy's tone shifts from patient to final. The cuffs come out. No struggle worth describing, no dramatic takedown. Just procedure, just consequence. As the deputy guides the man toward the vehicle, the man throws one last glare back at the cabin. "That dog's not safe," he spits. "You'll regret it." Ethan doesn't react. He's heard that line before, in different uniforms, in different places. It's always the same. Fear dressed up as certainty. The vehicle pulls away. Headlights vanish into the trees. The red and blue lights fade, leaving the cabin wrapped again in firelight and falling snow. For a moment, none of them move. Then Ethan closes the door gently and rests his forehead against it, as if feeling the solid wood under his skin will confirm what just happened is real. He exhales slowly, the breath leaving him like something he's been holding for years. Rex presses into Ethan's leg, firm, grounding contact. Ghost lets out a soft exhale near the fire, his body loosening fraction by fraction. The ranger steps back inside, shaking snow from her shoulders. Her expression is controlled, but there's something like satisfaction in her eyes. Not triumph, just relief that the system worked for once. She looks at Ethan. "You did the right thing," she says. Ethan doesn't answer immediately. Words are clumsy tools for feelings this heavy. He finally nods once. "Didn't feel like a choice." "It was," she replies. "You just didn't let yourself call it that." The fire pops softly. The cabin creaks. Outside, the storm continues its quiet persistence. Later, when the ranger has stepped out to make another call, Ethan kneels beside Ghost to check the bandage again. Ghost watches him, eyes steady. The dog's breathing is calmer now, but his body still holds pain in careful places. Ethan's fingers pause near the tactical collar, the old one, weathered, worn, not like a pet collar at all. Just function, just identification. He studies Ghost's face, the faint scars under the fur, the way the dog watches without demanding. Ethan has been careful not to give the dog a name. Names create belonging. Names turn rescue into commitment. Ethan has spent years avoiding commitments that might hurt to lose. But he looks at Ghost now, alive, present, still here, and he realizes that refusing to name him won't protect anyone. It will only keep distance where trust is already forming. He swallows once. "Ghost," he says quietly. The word feels strange at first, like speaking into an empty room. But then Ghost's ears flick. His eyes sharpen slightly. He doesn't jump or wag dramatically. He simply acknowledges, like a soldier receiving a call sign and accepting the responsibility that comes with it. Rex shifts behind Ethan, as if approving. Ethan sits back on his heels, watching Ghost for a long moment. The firelight reflects in the dog's eyes, turning the amber into something warmer, something steadier. Ethan feels the same shift in himself. Subtle, quiet, but undeniable. Not peace, but direction. The next morning arrives cleaner than the last. Sunlight breaks through in thin gold lines, catching on snowdrifts like sparks. The mountain looks almost gentle in this light, as if last night's threat was a dream. Ethan stands at the cabin doorway, coffee cup warming his hands, looking out at the trees. Rex sits at his side, tactical collar visible, posture calm and watchful. Ghost lies on a thick blanket near the threshold, bandaged neck still tender but his breathing stronger, his eyes following Ethan when he moves. The ranger returns briefly, her truck crunching over snow. She steps out, face set with purpose. "I have to file reports," she says, "and I'm going to keep digging." Ethan nods. He doesn't ask for promises. Before she leaves, she looks at Ghost one more time. "He's lucky," she says. Ethan's gaze stays on the road ahead. So am I. Later that day, Ethan takes Ghost back into town for a follow-up check. The veterinarian examines him again, nodding slowly as she confirms what her instincts told her from the start. Ghost is not aggressive, not unstable, not dangerous, just hurt, just recovering. Ethan hears the words like a verdict and a release at the same time. He thanks her with a nod, pays, leaves with paperwork tucked under his arm like a mission brief. When he steps outside, the sky is pale blue. The snow has stopped. The air feels still. Back at the truck, Rex jumps into the passenger seat as if he's been doing it his whole life. Ghost climbs carefully into the back, settling onto the blanket with practiced restraint. Ethan closes the doors and stands for a moment beside the vehicle, looking out at the mountain road stretching ahead. It doesn't promise ease. It doesn't promise closure. It promises continuation. Ethan slides into the driver's seat, hands settling on the wheel, dog tags resting against his chest. He glances once in the mirror. Ghost meets his eyes. Steady, present. Rex faces forward, ears upright. Ethan turns the key, the engine starts. The truck rolls forward, and whatever comes next, they're moving toward it together. The mountain does not change overnight. Snow still clings to the slopes in uneven patches, packed hard in the shadows, soft and blinding where the sun catches it just right. The air remains thin and sharp, carrying sound farther than it should. Ethan notices this as he steps out of the truck and closes the door behind him, listening to the quiet settle again after the engine fades. Quiet feels different now, not safer, just honest. He moves slowly back into the cabin, careful not to wake Ghost. The dog lies stretched out on a blanket near the hearth, neck bandaged, chest rising and falling with a steadiness that still surprises Ethan when he notices it. Rex lies near the doorway, chin resting on his paws, eyes open, always open. Ethan pours coffee into a chipped mug and leans against the counter, letting the heat seep into his hands. His body feels heavy in a way he recognizes, not exhaustion from action, but the deeper kind that comes after tension finally releases. The kind that leaves room for thought and memory. He has spent years learning how not to stay, how to keep moving, how to leave before roots can form, how to convince himself that distance equals safety. He learned it in uniform, learned it again when the uniform came off, learned it in places like this. Temporary shelters, borrowed quiet, moments that were never meant to last. But something here resists that instinct. Ethan glances toward Ghost again. The dog shifts slightly in his sleep, paws twitching once as if chasing something only he can see. There is no sound of distress, no tension in the body, just rest, real rest. Ethan feels the unfamiliar tug of responsibility settle deeper, not the sharp, urgent kind that demands immediate action, but the slow, persistent weight of something that expects him to remain. Later that morning, he checks Ghost's bandage again. The swelling has gone down slightly. The skin is still tender, but healing has begun. Ethan cleans the area gently, murmuring reassurances he doesn't realize he's giving until the words are already gone. "You're doing good," he says quietly. "Just keep breathing." Ghost opens his eyes and looks at him, fully awake now. There is no fear there, no flinch, just attention. Rex rises and stretches, then steps closer, placing himself beside Ethan, as if the position is intentional. Ethan rests a hand briefly on Rex's shoulder, feeling the solid muscle beneath the fur. Familiar, reliable. The ranger returns just before noon. Her truck crunches up the narrow path, tires biting into packed snow. She steps out with a folder tucked under one arm, her posture already angled toward the next task. She doesn't linger at the doorway this time. She's been here before now. She knows the space. "I filed the report," she says once she's inside. "It won't move fast. It never does. But it's moving." Ethan nods. He expected nothing less. She glances at Ghost, noting the way the dog lifts his head at her presence but doesn't tense. "He looks better?" "He is," Ethan replies. She studies Ethan for a moment, then says, "You don't have to keep him." Ethan looks at her, surprised, not by the suggestion, but by the sincerity behind it. "I mean it," she continues. "There are programs, foster networks, people who specialize in cases like this." Ethan considers the words carefully. He has already thought through every version of this conversation alone. Already weighed the logic. Already tried to convince himself that handing Ghost off would be the responsible thing. "I know," he says, "but I'm not done." The ranger nods slowly, accepting the answer without pressing. She knows when not to push. "Then I'll keep doing my part," she says. "If anyone comes asking questions again, they'll be talking to me." She leaves shortly after, the weight of her presence lingering even after the sound of her engine fades. Days pass, not many, but enough to matter. Ethan settles into a rhythm he didn't plan. Morning checks, bandage changes, short, careful walks near the cabin, once Ghost is strong enough to stand without shaking. Rex moves with them, always alert, always measured, adjusting his pace to Ghost's limitations without instruction. The dogs communicate in ways Ethan finds himself watching closely. A glance, a pause, a subtle shift of space. Rex never crowds Ghost, never challenges him. Ghost, in turn, mirrors Rex's discipline, his restraint. They move like professionals recognizing one another's training. Ethan sees something else, too. Ghost doesn't startle the way he used to. Loud noises still make his ears twitch, his muscles tense, but he recovers faster now. He looks to Ethan instead of shutting down. Looks to Rex, looks outward instead of inward. One afternoon, while Ethan is repairing a loose board on the porch, a sound echoes through the valley. A sharp crack, distant but sudden. Ghost stiffens instantly, eyes wide, breath catching. Ethan freezes, then turns slowly. Ghost doesn't bolt. He doesn't cower. He waits. Ethan steps closer and kneels in front of him, keeping his movements calm, deliberate. He rests a hand lightly on Ghost's chest, feeling the rapid beat beneath. "It's okay," he says, voice steady. "Just sound. Nothing coming." Ghost's breathing slows, not all at once, but enough. That night, the memories come back for Ethan, not as violent flashes this time. Slower. He lies awake on the floor, staring up at the ceiling, listening to the wind move through the trees. His thoughts drift, not to the canyon, not to the mission that ended everything, but to the moment he followed the order he shouldn't have. The moment he stayed back. The moment someone else paid the price. He feels Ghost shift near him, then settle closer, warm weight pressing lightly against his side. Rex lies at his back, a solid presence anchoring him in place. Ethan exhales slowly. I stayed then, he whispers into the dark. I'm not staying back again. The words aren't a promise. They're a statement. The next morning, Ethan loads the truck. Not because he's leaving, but because he's choosing where to stand. He drives into town, Ghost resting in the back, Rex alert in the front. He stops at the supply store, then the hardware shop, then the feed store. He buys what he needs: more bandages, better insulation, a sturdier collar, not a pet's, but something that respects what Ghost is. The clerk asks how long he'll be staying up there. Ethan pauses. Long enough? He says. Word travels quietly in small places. By the third day, people know there's a veteran living up in the cabin again, that there's a dog with scars around his neck, that there was trouble and it didn't end the way it usually does. No one asks too many questions, not out loud, but Ethan feels the shift. That afternoon, a deputy stops by. Not the same one from the arrest, but another. He's polite, curious, careful. We're keeping an eye on things, he says. You did the right thing. Ethan nods, accepting the words without ceremony. After the deputy leaves, Ethan sits on the porch steps, watching Ghost and Rex lie in the snow a few feet away. Rex's ears flick at distant sounds. Ghost tracks birds in the trees, eyes bright, attention outward. For the first time in a long while, Ethan notices something unexpected in himself. Not peace, belonging. That night he dreams again, but it's different. No shouting, no chaos, just movement. Forward, purpose without urgency. He wakes before dawn and steps outside. The sky is pale, the mountains outlined in soft blue light. Breath fogs in the air. He stands there, hands in his pockets, dog tags resting against his chest. Rex joins him first, sitting at his side. Ghost comes next, slower but steady, standing just behind Ethan's leg. Not hiding, choosing position. Ethan looks down at him. You're not a ghost anymore, he says quietly. Not here. Ghost's ears twitch. He doesn't need to understand the words to feel the truth behind them. The road ahead is still uncertain. The people who hurt Ghost are not all gone. The system that allowed it still exists. Ethan knows this. He doesn't pretend otherwise. But for the first time since he left the service, he feels aligned with something again. Not an order, not a mission, but a responsibility he chose. He doesn't know how long he'll stay. He only knows he's staying. The mountains do not offer conclusions. They offer distance, perspective, and the kind of silence that forces truth to surface whether a person is ready for it or not. Ethan understands this as he stands outside the cabin in the early morning light. Breath fogging in the cold air. Boots planted in snow that has already begun to harden overnight. Behind him, the cabin is quiet. Inside, Ghost sleeps near the hearth. Bandaged neck rising and falling in a steady rhythm that no longer startles Ethan when he notices it. Rex lies near the door, alert even at rest, his body angled toward the outside world as if the boundary between shelter and threat is something he takes personally. Ethan has learned to trust that. The days that follow are not dramatic. There are no confrontations waiting at the edge of the trees, no sudden emergencies demanding heroics. Instead, there is work, the kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that matters because it repeats. Ethan fixes what needs fixing, reinforces what should have been reinforced long ago. He spends time with Ghost in the quiet hours of the morning, letting the dog set the pace. Some days they walk only a few steps beyond the cabin before Ghost stops, testing the world carefully. Other days, they go farther. Ghost's confidence returning in increments too small to notice all at once. Rex is always there. He does not crowd. He does not dominate. He watches. He adjusts. When Ghost hesitates, Rex pauses. When Ghost advances, Rex mirrors the movement. They learn each other without ceremony, without rivalry, like professionals recognizing shared ground. Ethan observes this with a quiet attention that surprises him. In the service, trust was built fast and tested hard. Here, it grows slower, deeper, more fragile, and because of that, more valuable. One afternoon, the ranger returns. This time, she stays longer. She brings updates, names, connections. The man who came to the cabin wasn't acting alone. There are others, private handlers, off-the-books contracts. Animals moved quietly across county lines. The kind of network that survives on indifference more than secrecy. I won't pretend this ends clean, she says, sitting at the small table, steam rising from her mug. But it's moving, and it's being watched now. Ethan nods. He never expected justice to arrive neatly wrapped. What about him? She asks, glancing toward Ghost. Ethan looks at the dog before answering. Ghost lies on his side, eyes half open, alert but calm, listening without appearing to listen. He stays, Ethan says. The ranger studies him for a moment. You sure? Ethan doesn't hesitate. Yes. She nods, satisfied. Not because she agrees, but because she understands the weight of certainty when it finally arrives. Before she leaves, she hands Ethan a card, a contact, someone involved in a pilot program she's heard about. Veterans, working dogs, rehabilitation that doesn't treat either as disposable. Ethan tucks the card into his jacket pocket without comment. That night, the wind picks up again. Not a storm, just enough to remind the cabin and the people inside it that the mountains are never finished speaking. Ethan wakes before midnight, not from panic, but from instinct. He sits up slowly, listening. Rex lifts his head. Ghost shifts, then settles again. Ethan moves to the window and looks out at the dark shapes of trees against the sky. The wind moves through them in low waves, bending branches but not breaking them. He thinks about the canyon he used to dream about the order he followed, about the weight he carried afterward. Not because he was weak, but because he was human. He realizes something then that feels almost obvious in hindsight. The guilt never came from what he couldn't control. It came from the moment he stopped trying. Ethan steps back from the window and looks down at Ghost. You weren't left because you failed, he says quietly, not expecting an answer. You were left because someone decided you didn't matter. Ghost's eyes open fully, meeting his. Ethan exhales. You matter. The next morning, Ethan drives into town again. Not for supplies, not for repairs, for information. He meets with the veterinarian once more, then stops by the ranger station. Conversations are short but purposeful. He listens more than he speaks. When he finally pulls the card from his pocket and makes the call, his voice is steady. He doesn't ask for absolution. He asks for responsibility. The answer on the other end of the line doesn't come immediately. There are questions, processes, evaluations. Nothing moves fast. Ethan expects that. Weeks pass. Snow begins to thin in places where sunlight reaches the ground. Water runs in narrow lines along the road. The forest breathes differently now, as if preparing for something new. Ghost's strength returns gradually. His gait evens out. The stiffness fades. The scars remain, but they soften, losing their anger. His eyes stay sharp, alert, but no longer carry the constant tension of anticipation. One afternoon, a sharp sound echoes through the valley again, a crack of ice breaking somewhere higher up. Ghost freezes. Ethan watches him closely. Ghost lifts his head, ears forward, body tense. For a heartbeat, Ethan sees the old reflex trying to take over. Then Ghost looks back at him, not pleading, checking. Ethan nods once. Ghost breathes out and stays where he is. That moment settles something in Ethan that he didn't realize was still unsettled. This isn't recovery. It's trust. Rex moves closer to Ghost, shoulder brushing lightly against him. Not dominance, not reassurance. Solidarity. Ethan smiles before he can stop himself. Later that evening, the call comes. The program has been approved. Conditional, at first. Evaluation period. Training. Structure. Support. Not a return to the old life, but something adjacent to it. Something refined. Ethan listens without interrupting. When the voice on the other end finishes, there's a pause. "Are you interested?" the man asks. Ethan looks at Ghost, then at Rex. "Yes," he says. "We are." The preparation takes time. Paperwork, travel arrangements, evaluations that feel more invasive than combat debriefs ever did. Ethan doesn't mind. He answers honestly. He doesn't polish his history. He doesn't hide his failures. Ghost is assessed carefully, thoroughly. He passes not because he is perfect, but because he is controlled. Present. Capable of restraint. Rex is noted for what he has always been. Steady, reliable, unshakable. One evaluator watches the three of them together for a long moment and then says, "They move like a unit." Ethan nods. "We are." The night before they leave the cabin, Ethan stands alone on the porch. The mountains stretch out before him, dark and quiet under a sky scattered with stars. The cabin behind him is warm, familiar, no longer just a stop along the way. He understands now that staying didn't mean stopping. It meant choosing where to stand. Rex joins him, sitting at his side. Ghost comes last, slower but sure, standing just behind Ethan's leg, close enough to feel, far enough to breathe. Ethan looks down at him. "You ready?" he asks. Ghost's tail shifts once. Not excitement, not fear, readiness. Ethan exhales and lets the cold fill his lungs. The road ahead doesn't promise redemption. It promises work. It promises moments where the past will try to return. It promises responsibility that cannot be set down when it becomes heavy. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan wants exactly that. The next morning, they load the truck, not in a rush, not with urgency, with intention. Ethan takes one last look at the cabin before closing the door behind him, the place that taught him something simple and difficult at the same time. That staying isn't weakness, that choosing again is not failure, that some lives don't need to be saved dramatically, they just need to be seen and kept. He climbs into the driver's seat. Rex settles into the passenger side, ears forward, eyes on the road. Ghost lies in the back, bandage gone now, scars visible but healed, body relaxed, attention outward. Ethan turns the key. The engine hums to life. The truck rolls forward, tires crunching over thawing snow, heading down the mountain toward a future that doesn't ask him to forget, but finally allows him to move forward. The road disappears around a bend. They don't look